We will discuss this and more with some of the best political minds in the country coming right up on Roll Call TV.
From CNA Studios on Capitol Hill, this is Roll Call with Robert Trainum.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Roll Call TV. I'm Robert Trainum, and as always, thanks for joining us on the show that covers all things political here on the Comcast Network. And once again, where we are talking about the race for America's next president. And a while back, we spoke about Senator McCain, the Republican nominee for president, and what he needs to do to get the keys to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And today, we discuss all things Obama, the Democratic nominee for president, and some of the tactical steps he needs to do to take the keys to the White House. Joining me to discuss this and more are some of the best political minds in the country. Karen Finney, Communications Director for the Democratic National Committee, and strategist Rich Masters, and of course, Aaron Billings, Associate Editor of Roll Call newspaper. Thank you. That's a great smile. Do it again.
You always yell at me for not smiling.
That's true.
There you go.
Well, welcome, everybody. Let's talk about Senator Obama. Obviously, he is the presumptive Democratic nominee. He is someone that is, it's really interesting because from what I understand about Senator Obama, he is one who is very deliberate in terms of the positions that he takes. He thinks things through. He looks at every single, or listens to every single argument before he makes a decision. He brings all of his advisors in and says, give me your best ideas. Give me some of your thoughts. In fact, on the campaign trail, he talks about the team of rivals. That is a book that Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote a few years ago, where it talks about Senator Abraham Lincoln at the time, who was then inaugurated as president, how he brought in his rivals for the presidency to talk about what he needs to do. And it seems like Senator Obama does that. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about policy, if you don't mind, for a few moments. There's been some criticism that Senator Obama has moved a little bit to the center as it relates to the war and also as it relates to FISA. Specifically on the war, Senator Obama has said in the past that when I am elected president, the troops will come home as soon as possible. He recently has said that, you know what, I reserve the right to shift my position on Iraq based on the realities of the ground. Karen, your response to that?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, now that we're in the general election phase, obviously the swath of issues that we're discussing and the contrast between Senator Obama and Senator McCain is going to be different than the discussion that you were having during the primary. So whereas I think people see that as a move to the center, I actually also think it's only fair to say that it's just a change in the tone of the discussion because the issues
it's a different audience.
It's a slightly different audience, but again, the contrast between remember during the primary between Senator Clinton and Senator Obama, a lot of the differences were not that great, but the differences between Senator McCain and Senator Obama are far more dramatic, and part of the job right now is to highlight those differences and really refine that for people so that they can make that distinction. On the war, I actually think Senator Obama has been very consistent. What he said was he wants to get the troops out, but I think he acknowledged he would talk to the generals on the ground in terms of force protection if we had to leave some forces behind. So I don't think that's a shift in position.
But why did some folks in the Democratic Party literally say, why are you shifting your position then? If in fact you don't believe that he did, why did it come across that it looked like that he did?
Well, again, I think it's a sensitive time. People are scrutinizing everything each one of these candidates says, whether rightly or not. And I think maybe some folks thought they heard a change, and I thought the campaign did a good job of getting out there very quickly and making it very clear that he wasn't changing positions. And tactically, that's really important in this phase of a campaign. You can't afford to let something that is perceived as a misstatement or a misspeaking or a mistake of some kind, you can't let that sit out there too long because the news cycle is just moving so fast.
It's interesting. I'll get you to respond to this, Rick. Senator Obama obviously said some things on his own about the war, specifically about just clarifying his position, and we should take a listen to that because I think it's pretty interesting in terms of what he had to say. Let's take a listen.
We can't be there for 50 years. We can't afford it. Our military families can't bear that burden. We've got to get more troops into Afghanistan. I am going to bring this war to an end, so don't be confused. I will bring the Iraq war to a close when I'm president of the United States of America.
Pretty decisive there. Rich, what are your responses?
I think very decisive. And, one of the lines that I've heard him repeat over and over, and whether that was in the primary or whether it's in the general election, is I want to be as careful getting our troops out of harm's way, as George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and the rest were careless, rushing them into a misguided, upside-down war. And I think he has been consistent all along that he wants to be careful getting us out. He understands that there are regional, global implications for how we do this. The people are looking across the world as to how we do this. And just to willy-nilly say immediately I'm going to start ordering folks home is not a responsible thing, and we don't want that in our next president. We want our next president to be very deliberative. We want, we've had 8 years now of the decider. Some guy who just makes decisions willy-nilly. I want someone who's going to sit back and listen to the generals, listen to the ambassadors, listen to our diplomats on the ground and say, how do we do this? Let's be very careful in how we do this, because we've got to not only just getting the troops out of Iraq, the world will be watching us now, and they're going to be watching how we do this. And when Barack Obama is president of the United States and he has a global way to get out of this that engages our allies in the region, make no mistake about it, our allies throughout the region, particularly the Arab states, are going to be watching how we do this. Because once we're gone, they're going to be the ones that are going to be left to kind of hold the peace in the Middle East that's very fragile at best.
Aaron, let's talk a little bit about FISA, which is the federal wiretapping bill that the president most recently signed into law. Senator Obama voted in favor of that, which also alienated to a certain degree some people in his party, particularly the more left-leaning of the base. Are there any other legislative issues out there that you think, or that you've seen, or that you've heard on Capitol Hill, where Senator Obama perhaps maybe has moved, at least maybe perceptually, to the center on some issues?
Well, that is the most striking. There really isn't a lot going on legislatively, as you know, in the Senate. We've only got a few weeks left. I think the bigger issue for Barack Obama is less about whether or not he's in the center. It's more about whether or not he's going to bear this label of being a flip-flopper, which the Republicans are trying mightily to hang on his lapel. And, the FISA issue was one of them. Campaign finance reform, as you know, he originally kind of entertained the idea of public financing.
He signed a pledge.
He has backed away from that. What you saw with the war, he clearly, whether or not he has been inconsistent or not, he clearly is at least trying to overcompensate and say, whoa, 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 I am not flip-flopping here. So I think that's the bigger issue. I think center or not, I think that he's trying to make sure that he is perceived in the public eye as staying on the straight and narrow, because Republicans are going to do their best to make him characterize him.
Yeah,
as a
well, and part of that is obviously on our side, we have made much of Senator McCain's changing positions, from immigration to the Bush tax cuts. He's got a number of these inconsistencies that we've actually, I think, been able to get some traction on. So no wonder they're actually trying that on Senator Obama. But I agree. I think part of what Senator Obama really needs to do now, in addition to sort of laying out these policy ideas, is to just convey himself as a strong, decisive leader. What you were saying in the opening, it's one thing, and I think this is his management style, to get opinions from a wide range of people and solicit those opinions. But I think the other thing that you're seeing him do, which is so critical, is to say, at the end of the day, I'm the guy who's going to make the decision, and I'm going to let you know where I stand.
That's an interesting transition, because besides being a flip-flopper, the Republicans are also going to try, at least they're trying it now, they're trying to label Senator Obama as young and inexperienced in terms of being very thin from an executive standpoint, not having to run anything and so forth.
How'd that work for Hillary Clinton?
Well, but you can make the argument that obviously she was married to the President of the United States, so she did have some quasi-executive experience by seeing her husband up close and personal. But going back to Senator Obama there for a moment, Mitt Romney, the former governor of Massachusetts, obviously who ran for president in his own right and lost to John McCain, said some comments about Senator Obama's lack of executive experience. Let's take a listen.
Barack Obama is a charming, well-spoken person, but he's never actually run anything. He's never had the experience of leadership. So let's take the proven.
Karen Finney, your response?
Well, considering that Mitt Romney spent a good portion of his tenure actually trying to run for president, I'm not exactly sure that his executive experience is the one I'm going to go with.
He's running for vice president right now.
Exactly. Right now he's running for vice president. But look, I think experience is a question and a factor in people's minds. Judgment is another factor in people's minds. And I think if you make the comparison of, Senator McCain and Senator Obama, and the number one thing Senator Obama can say is, I would have had the judgment from day one to know that we shouldn't have gone into Iraq. So if we're going to make it about experience, we also have to make it about judgment. But look, I think at the end of the day, what people are going to vote on is just that gut feeling that they have about whether it's Senator McCain or Senator Obama is going to be the right person for the future. And I think you can't underestimate that sort of emotional connection that people need to feel with their leaders. They may like where you stand on certain issues, but if they don't trust you, if they don't think at the end of the day you're going to make the right decisions, it's not going to matter.
Well, and I mean, frankly, we're in a change election. I mean, and that's why I kind of threw out the Hillary Clinton thing. I mean, that was Hillary